Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Arts at EPCC. My name is Dr. Yasmine Flores, and with me today is my great friend who has now been on the show more than anybody else. But my favorite guest, Mr. Ted Karber from theater. Hello, Ted.
Hello, Yasmine. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yes, of course. I always love to talk to you because you honestly are one of the best teachers that I've worked with and I've observed.
Well, thank you.
And the product that you put out, which is recently Anna Karenina, I was so impressed with that production. So Mr. Karber is a coordinator for theater here at EPCC.
That's right.
And you just finished this wonderful production. And so tell me a little bit about Anna Karenina. What was it?
Well, of course, it's based on the novel by Tolstoy.
Okay.
And set in the middle of the 1870s. It's about a woman who is the wife of an upper-class government official who meets a dashing young military officer and starts a relationship with him. In the beginning, it's a very innocent relationship, but as the story unfolds, it becomes an affair. And the story basically is the story of how that affair, in the eyes of society, affect Anna's life. And it affects Anna's life detrimentally.
Yes.
Yeah, she's not exactly a happy girl at the end of the play.
Right. So I went to go watch the play, and it was fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
First of all, so the play was long.
Yeah.
Over 2 hours.
2.5.
Yeah. And so when you made that announcement at the beginning, I was like, oh, okay. All right. I'm glad we have an intermission because this is going to be a long one. But you know what? I was so impressed with the fact that your students, our students here at EPCC, these were EPCC students who had memorized that much dialogue. I was just like, oh my gosh. And there's the lead. She was fantastic. And the young lady that played Anna Karenina. And so was the male lead. Russell
Ellaby.
Okay, Russell.
And he played Levin.
Levin, thank you. Yes, Russell Ellaby played. And then who played Anna?
Magali Vasquez.
Okay, Magali Vasquez. And so both of them did just this stunning job. And she really threw her whole heart into it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was so impressed with her. And I've seen this gentleman before. He was in the previous play that you all did in the fall. And so I hope they can stay on. If not, I understand. Sadly, here at EPCC, the degrees last 2 years.
Right.
So it's like middle school where we see them for a short time period. They start to get really great. We've taught them so much. And then it's time for them to move on.
That's exactly right.
So I'm always sad to see them leave. But so, okay, so you have this woman, and just to kind of tell you all a little bit about it, and you can go check out the novel yourself, the book. But it's so in the play, slowly they start to take garments off of Anna. And so I was sitting with Carolyn Wolfe from English. She was next to me and we were watching this, and I was like, why are they taking that off? Why are they taking they took off the shawl, they took off there's a bow or something.
The bustle.
Yes, the bustle to the, yes. And slowly different parts until she's just about in what were the undergarments of the day in
Correct.
the 1800s. And so I'm watching this. And then I start to realize, oh no, we have to look a little bit deeper. She feels vulnerable.
Right.
It's showing her vulnerability as a character. I thought it was so well done.
Oh, thank you.
And kudos to Dominic, who we were just talking about, Dominic Pagano, who is a godsend because every play, I don't have the imagination on how to stage the background to each of these plays. Like if you were to give me the script and say, okay, Yasmine, I need you to create the backdrop, I would just get a piece of paper and get the art students to paint some trees on it, right? And that would be it, right? The funniest thing I've ever seen, and you can tell me if it is common or if it's something that's kind of hokey, but when there's waves, they have these these things that go back and
that slide back and forth.
Yes, on the stage. And I guess it is a little hokey. Maybe there's something more modern that's done nowadays. But
that actually is a holdover from many years, many centuries ago. It started, in the Renaissance. But when you mention it, it brings up the theater of what we would call, the melodramatic kind of romantic theater of the mid to late 1800s. And they would create, these
scenes,
cardboard settings, basically. And they would do things like move them back and forth. And people would stand on a stool behind the first row of waves.
Oh, got it.
Oh, I'm in the water. That kind of thing. Yeah, that's exactly
so
right.
Funny. And so, but he really goes the extra mile. Nothing ever looks hokey.
No.
When Dominic does it. And so for this particular production, and he does this often, he uses screens. So were these just blank screens that were being projected on? Okay, got it.
Yeah, so he had 4 cameras on stage.
Okay.
4 projectors.
Okay.
And so the way he's remarkably talented. And the thing that's really fun about working with Dom is that he makes me rethink plays.
Oh, nice.
So I'll say, well, I'd kind of like to do this, read it, see what you think, and we'll talk about it. And he'll say, yeah, I think we should do it. I think it'd be a good experience for the students. And then he'll say, but I want to set it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I go away and I think about that.
Yeah.
And it makes me rethink plays, which is good because it kind of keeps me on my toes and it makes me stay a little fresher.
Right.
I had several students who had gone to see the show ask me why I had chosen it. And, the pat answer is I knew the novel, I'd read it several times, I read it twice. And it's, one of my, and it's just, I think, a good story. I think it's a really well told story. And so I really wanted to put it on the stage. And then, one of the things Karber does in his spare time, because he's a theater geek, he sits in front of Mr. Google and types in titles and sees what comes up for the stage.
Oh, nice.
And I found this version probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I ordered it and read it and thought, I really like this. I'd like to do it someday. And the time was just never right.
Yeah.
We needed to do a different show, or I didn't have enough actors to take all the parts. And we're at a point in our program where we've grown enough that I had enough students to do it.
Yeah.
And so I knew that I had several different young women who could play Anna, and I had several young men who could play Levin.
Right.
And so I knew that it was a possibility.
Right.
And so I told him, I said, I think we should do it in the spring. And he said, okay, let's do it. He likes the script. And I think it afforded us many opportunities, and it afforded these students opportunities to grow as theater artists.
Oh, absolutely. There's so one thing that, and we talk about this as teachers, we're very critical in the arts, right?
Right.
And I came to, I guess a flashlight was turned on over this topic when somebody from outside of the arts observed this about me one day, and they said, well, you just have a very keen eye. I'm like, no, I don't.
Right.
But we do. We're trained to. We are trained to critique from day one, because we have to teach ourselves. Like, and I say from an instrument perspective, you're probably in front of a mirror all day and all night. So it's your students, you can see the nervousness at the beginning, then they start to forget that the audience is there.
Right.
They start to kind of warm up about 5 minutes in, and now we're starting to take off. And so, and it was feeling really great 10 minutes in now, like everything's starting to get more comfortable. And all believable characters, really good acting. The brother, the one that played the brother, he did a great job.
That's Stephen Stringfellow.
Okay, yeah, he did a fantastic job as well. And even though his part was more like supporting, right? Supporting actor. I'm thinking of the Academy Awards now. And then the ones that played, I guess they were farm hands. And
the ensemble.
Yes, okay, the ensemble. And so they were also terrific too. And they were quirky. There was one in particular who had more lines out of that group, who was very quirky, and so you remember him because there was just something about his voice, his character, and the way he played it. It was really stunning. So let's talk about the future. What does the future hold? So for summer, what are you doing?
We've decided to do a play by Christopher Durang, a comedy, which is called Beyond Therapy.
Okay.
And it's this this ridiculous story about these two characters named Bruce and Prudence who are in therapy, and their therapists are perhaps more unstable than they are.
Oh.
And they meet each other through an advertisement in a dating site, and it's all kinds of insanity ensues.
Right.
And Christopher Durang is very famous for writing characters that are, shall we say, off the wall.
Okay.
And so they're fun. It's a fun show. I think the students will have a good time doing it. I told them that I won't make them do serious Russian imperial tragedy again. And so they're looking forward to a comedy.
Oh, good.
And so that will audition April 29th and 30th.
Okay.
And then it will go up. It'll go on the stage the latter part of June.
Wonderful. Yeah, so we look forward to that. And all these productions, by the way, are at the Trans Mountain campus.
Right.
So the foyer, is that?
Forum.
Forum, thank you. Hello, good morning. Yes, yes, the Forum is where we have all of our theater productions, and Dominic Pagano is there. Mr. Karber teaches at Via Veta there.
Right.
And you have the Black Box up
Right.
there. Are you doing anything in the Black Box this year?
No, we are in desperate need of a new lighting system.
Oh.
Slowly, that old lighting system is giving up.
Yeah.
And I think we have 2 lights that work now.
Oh.
So in the next year or so, I know they're going to, the college is adding new elevators to that building, to building C.
Yes.
And those elevators will be directly outside the Black Box Theater, which will make it convenient for people to get to the theater when they come to see shows.
That's great.
So once those elevators are in place, the college has generously agreed to give us a new lighting system.
Yes.
And so we'll have new lights, and we'll be able to do shows in there.
Right.
And so it'll be fun. I mean, I've always wanted to use the Black Box as a proving ground. And I know I have students who are interested in directing, and so what my hopes are is that once it's up and running, we can allow students to do shows in there, to direct shows in there.
Yes.
And that'll be a proving ground for young directors.
Absolutely. So you did a series of short plays. When was it? 2 years ago?
I did 2 years ago. I did a little collection of 10-minute plays called, we called it 6 by 10.
That's right.
And they were 6 10-minute shows. They were very fun. It was very fun to work on.
And you know what? And the beauty of it was you had some really talented kids in there. And I was just, and you don't need the fancy set. You don't need, you had a few like little props and things for them, right? Because they were throwing tomatoes at each other or something. Yeah.
Then we had to find them under the risers after the show was over.
Oh gosh.
We've got to find all the tomatoes. They'll rot.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that. That's funny. And so, that was really stunning, and it's small enough so that it's not so daunting,
Right.
to a newcomer, because you had some in there that didn't have as much experience as some of the others. And so I think that smaller setting, the Black Box, just to kind of tell everybody at home, is, well, you can't see the size of this room, but it's like maybe about 2 classrooms put together, right? And so 2 classrooms put together, it's all black. That's why they call it the Black Box. It's all the walls, the ceiling, everything's black. And it's not terribly echoey. Some are, but usually they're a little more dead, is what I've noticed about Black Box theaters. And and so you can do something more intimate. What does it seat? 30, 40?
Yeah, probably about 35.
Okay. Yeah, so a much more intimate setting, and sometimes you might even be participating as the audience member when it's the Black Box.
That's not far from the truth.
Right.
And it's not one of those experiences where you mentioned the length of Anna Karenina, and it ran 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
I would try to do a show that would not run that long in the
Right.
Black Box. The seats are not conducive to sitting for 2.5 hours.
Right.
And and it's just a different kind of theater. It's a more experimental theater. And the thing I really love about that kind of theatrical venue is that really affords students a whole different perspective on theater. When we were working on those little 10-minute plays, I remember I could see it, pardon me, in their eyes upon occasion. They would look out at those chairs and they would think, oh no, that audience is only going to be 15 inches away from me.
Yes.
And literally, you're acting in the audience's lap almost.
Yes.
And it teaches them concentration. It teaches them, to be involved in what's going on the stage and not be involved in what's happening in the audience.
Right.
That sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. So for me as a performer, I prefer those smaller settings. Something about the depths of when we perform at Plaza Theater or whatever it is, you can't see the audience because it's just black, right? The lights are so bright on stage. Correct. And so you don't know who's out there. You might see like a white sweater or somebody's wearing something dazzling and sparkly, but that's really about it. But when you're right there in front of them, I also wonder, do they panic? Do they have like a bout of nervousness? Because now, like, if I'm ready.
Oh yeah, they panicked on opening night. We did that show, I think we did it 4 times. I think we did a Friday night, a Saturday night, and then I think we did maybe a Sunday afternoon and then a Sunday evening. I think we did 4 shows.
Okay.
And that Friday night, they realized what was going on. It finally hit them what was going on.
Yeah.
And they're always so much fun because they're most of them, not all of them, some of them have had experience on the stage.
Sure.
But most of our students have not had huge amounts of experience. Certainly not experience with us.
Right.
And so it's always fun to watch them make these discoveries like nobody's ever discovered it before. And they're so much fun. I love the students I work with. I love teaching. The thing that's amazing to me, Yasmin, about these theater students is, and it was evident in Anna Karenina. I did this long speech when we started the show. I said, okay, this is my concept for the play. I want to do it with these what we call Bertolt Brechtian motifs, where you see actors come on the stage when they're not performing and sit upstage and watch the action of the play. And then they get up and leave, or you might see somebody come on stage as one character and then 2 minutes later they come on an opposite side of the stage as a different character, so they play a multiplicity of characters. That's all that kind of theatrical experience that we inherited from a German philosopher, theatrician, and playwright whose name was Bertolt Brecht.
Okay.
And I went into this long, detailed discussion about it one night early on in rehearsals, and they're like, really, we're going to do that? I'm like, yeah, we're going to do that. And you're going to learn how to do it and be good at it. And they were. And then what I love, Yasmin, is they come into a class now and they say, well, my favorite thing were the Brechtian techniques that we were able to. Right. So they know this.
They know it.
It's educated them. They're, and I tell them, you can walk into a classroom and you can feel fairly confident when you're in another classroom because you can speak intelligently about theater. And that's my goal, is to give them enough information that they feel like they can hold their own with other people.
Right. Yeah, that is so fantastic. I admire everything that you've done with them, and the beauty of theater and even the ensembles, looking at the other arts as well, is that we take what every student has, right? Some already have a little bit of experience under their belt. Some are super green, right? Some are kind of, they still get a little stage fright, etc. And you put them where you need them, right? The very good ones might take the leads. Some people with a little bit of stage fright might take, a supporting role. And then there's the ensemble for those that are green. Right. Okay, so if they forget their lines, not a big deal. Stand there, pretend you're the pilgrim, and then walk away, right?
Try to catch the turkey and you're going to be just fine. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that is so terrific. And I have to say, I'm just so thoroughly impressed. So for this coming summer, what are your ideas on the set? And have you discussed this already with Dom?
Oh, I think Dom will probably, he had constructed these wonderful turntables that we used when we did Food Chain.
Okay.
And they were just magical, and they were so much fun to use on stage. And they were
Yeah.
literally, I think they were 16 feet across, and they pivoted, they turned, and so on one, and they were divided down the middle, and so on one side was this one set, and then they would pivot, and then the other side was a different set, and they were very fun to use. And I think he's thinking about using at least one of those as part of the set for Beyond Therapy.
Okay.
And it's not a period piece. Well, it is. It was written in the late 70s, early 80s.
Okay.
But it kind of transcends time. I
Sure.
mean, it's not, it doesn't have to be set in 1979.
Okay.
So one of my beloved professors, whose name was Milton Leach, whom I just adored, he used to say, we're going to capture the time spirit. So I'm going to pick a time out there, and we're going to capture that spirit. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet. But I want these students this summer to have fun, and I want them to enjoy the process of a comedy.
Oh, wonderful. That's awesome. And you're right, because as long as they don't make any reference to the time period, then you're kind of free to pick any decade, any century, quite frankly. So that's really awesome. And so when you describe this turntable, I think I understand what you're saying. So are you saying that you would put an entire backdrop on it and it would turn?
Correct. So what it would be, let's say as if this round table were the turntable.
Yes.
And it's divided literally in half by a wall.
Okay.
So the whole turntable pivots. The whole circle turns. So this set is for Act 1.
Okay.
And then you pivot it and you get that side downstage facing the audience.
Okay.
And that becomes the set for Act 2.
Oh,
very fun. It was very, very fun. And it had these, he had made, Dom is a magician of welding. He loves metalwork.
Okay.
And he's just unbelievably talented.
Yeah.
And so he made these big metal keys that fit into these divots that were in these platforms.
Okay.
And he pivoted. You took that key, and that's how you pivot. I mean, and I used to tell people, when you come to see the show, when an intermission happens, don't get up. Wait 5 minutes, because I want you to watch that set change. And everybody was just, that's great. That's so much fun.
That's awesome.
The set change was as exciting as the play. Originally, Dom had a more realistic interpretation of that set, but as rehearsals went on and as we talked, things kind of got modified. But he gave me this long platform, this raised platform that's raised about 5 feet off the floor.
Yeah.
And it spanned the stage, and then there was a set of stairs that came down center stage, and then the screens were hung in front of that.
Yeah.
And there was a large screen on stage right, and then 3 smaller screens on the other side of the stage. And sometimes they had the same images on them. Sometimes they had different images.
Yeah.
At one point in the latter part of the play, when Anna is facing the real upheaval of what is happening, Dom used these wonderful images of this forest scene, and it was a video, and it moved. It was so cool. It was very, very cool.
I was so impressed with that. And there was the racing. There was the horse race,
which caused lots of comment.
Right, yes, of course. And then there was just so many beautiful things. I mean, it really was quite stunning. And so I look forward to this summer. Let me ask you something more broadly. Where do you see yourself? What other plays do you see? Like, is there something you're just dying to do in the next 4 or 5 years?
Well, I'm a great fan of the Dracula story.
Oh, yes.
Being a melodramatic kid that I was, and I've not gotten far away from that, I might say. And so we might do a Dracula version, maybe in the fall, maybe this fall, maybe next fall. We'll do a Dracula version.
Okay.
There are playwrights I'd like to tackle. But one of the things that I recognize, because we are basically a fairly small program, Yasmin.
Sure.
I teach all the performance classes, and Dom teaches all of the technical classes. And I direct the shows, and Dom designs the sets, and I do the administrative work.
Right.
And so it's a fairly full plate.
Yes.
And so I have to be mindful of what I think I can do, what I think Dom can do, and what I think our students can do.
Yeah.
So one of the great things about teaching, and you know this, is you can offer students the opportunity to do scenes from a play that you might not be able to put on the stage. Right now in my Acting 2 class, I have 2 students doing a scene from Hedda Gabler by Henrik Ibsen, which is a major, major Ibsen play, late 1800s, heavy duty, probably not something I would tackle on the stage, I don't think.
Okay.
I have 2 other students doing a scene from The Seagull by Chekhov, heavy duty, 4-act play, long, difficult to do.
Yeah.
So acting classes give me a chance to work on those plays, but not in full.
Right.
Which kind of makes it okay. It makes me not want to, be unhappy, because I get a chance to work on those pieces.
Right.
And that's fun. But I also am mindful, and I said this to my Anna Karenina cast, and I meant it very, very sincerely, that they tackled an incredibly complicated play.
Yeah.
And an incredibly difficult play.
Absolutely.
And I think, considering where they are in their theatrical training, they did a really fine job.
Yes, they did.
So there are plays I'd like to do, but I recognize they might be too big for me right now. I'd like someday to do a Chekhov, but Anton Chekhov never wrote anything that wasn't 4 acts, and he never wrote anything that didn't have 22 characters in it.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm like, okay, I have to be mindful of, can we legitimately do this?
Right.
And they're period pieces.
Okay.
Late 1800s, so
Oh,
you've
wow.
got costumes.
Yeah.
And there's always one woman in each of those plays that's dressed to the nines, and so
Right.
you've got a costume for every act, and you've got bustles and blah,
No
blah, blah.
kidding. And let me ask you, let me go back, and I'm going to kind of sidetrack. Did somebody from EPCC Fashion help you with that dress?
We were so lucky.
Okay. Yeah.
The Professor Jose Saenz, who is a professor in our fashion tech department out at Trans Mountain, designed and made Anna Karenina's costume, this exquisite costume with all this silver satin.
Gorgeous.
And then
Yeah.
this gigantic, exquisite green bustle and this black capelet. It was like looking at a wedding cake.
Right.
And I remember a great story. We had not had the costume, of course, in rehearsals. You don't start wearing a costume until you get really close to performance. And Magali, the girl who played Anna, she went down to the fashion tech room, and he was ready, and he was going to put it on her, do the final fittings, make sure it all fit.
Yeah.
And he sent her down, and she came into the theater, and everybody was on stage, and we were working, and and they all turned to look at the back of the house, and they all did the same thing. Oh! And
Yeah.
she walks into the room in that gorgeous costume.
I know.
So it was just a beautiful, beautiful costume. And
Yeah.
then the costumes for all of the ensemble characters. So Levin, Steva, Vronsky,
Yes.
Kitty, Valeria's character, whose name I cannot remember right this minute, all of them were dressed in black.
Yes.
And all of those were made by the fashion tech coordinator, whose name is Vanessa Ramirez.
Oh, yes.
So she made all of those costumes. She did what we call the blacks, and she
Yes.
did all the blacks. And Jose did that exquisite costume for Anna.
In silver.
And
Yeah.
we were so lucky. And I thought, it was a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
That was 12 costumes.
Yeah. No
And
kidding.
that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And she fitted them all, and they all fit, and they were all made for
Yeah,
actors.
that's
And I thought,
awesome.
they probably, every time they see me coming down the hall now, they'll run and duck into a room and hide behind the door, hoping that I won't ask them to do something else. They came to me and said, "Oh no, please, we'd love to do another show."
Great. I'm so happy to hear that. So shout out to Vanessa Ramirez, because she also created some tablecloths for us for faculty development some time ago. And she did a stunning job. It was the table runners. And so I am very grateful to her for that as well. So we're going to wrap up this first half hour.
Okay.
Ted, give everybody a moment to collect themselves, to wipe away the tears, right? Get all the laughter out.
There we go. Let's hope it's for the latter.
Yes, exactly. And get a snack.
There you
and
go.
we will be right back with the second half of this episode with Mr. Ted Karber. So stay tuned. We will see you in just a bit. Take care.